do this fast and snatch of what we talk about and what the dollars. You see the comments.
Oh, okay, well, I didn't hear the word. Look, I mean, I don't know the specifics of the New York budget, but I do know that these topics we're talking about are, in many cases, I mean, there's no accident that a lot of the character skills or personality skills are called soft skills. It's viewed as soft and fuzzy, hard to measure. I think we can measure.
Therefore, less important sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes it's dismissed. I mean, I think we really, it's an amazing change in American education in the last 50 years, how we really emphasize the test, right? And so forth. But there's a similar issue going on about parents. I think what we haven't done, and I think it's in politics, so I hope I didn't inflame some of you by talking about Moynihan and so forth. But Moynihan was making a general point. There is a parallel phenomenon going on in American families. It's an America-wide, it's a worldwide phenomenon. And part of the difficulty is part of the rising inequality, you get these very stressed families. So it's not that that a lot of the parents don't care. The parents are working extremely long hours. It's a single parent. The resources are very pressed. It's going to be very difficult to engage the parent in the same way. So it's no accident that this great divide that Sarah McLean is talking about, being highly educated mothers, some of whom can take some time off from their jobs and are much more professional. So I think it's partly a matter of even putting these pieces together. It's really understanding the importance of parenting, and maybe even teaching parents, as Canada is doing, and others as well, Jeffrey Canada. Namely, that I think it's partly a matter of education on our part to really show that these things matter. I mean, right now, I would argue, you were mentioning test scores, with all due respect. I talked to your Arnie Duncan a few months ago, and he's talking about test scores. And everybody's starting to acknowledge there are these other dimensions. I think the same thing is true of parenting. People just don't know quite what to do with it. But I would look at the
early outcomes. When we talk about test scores, because we're looking at outcomes, so measure,
but see,
proxies for whether you have skill or not.
But see, what I view these early childhood programs as being is supplements to the parent. I mean, they're really doing the same thing. I mean, they're not the same thing, because the mother has to be there. I mean, the parents have to be there. If it's only the mother there, there has to be this parental engagement. But these supplements make it easier for the family, the stressed family, to do the parenting. I think that, and then teach the parenting. So I think it's partly a matter of education, and I even think the positioning, even the discussion in the public, because a lot of discussions about the neuroscience of early childhood, that's all very interesting, but I think we want to look more at the mechanisms, which involve parenting, which involve aspects of attachment, which again sound really soft and fuzzy, but the evidence is increasingly hard. I don't know if that answers your question. You had an answer.
I was just going to say quickly that parent involvement is not rocket science. It's actually much, much harder than that. And I think that's the problem. That people don't see the role that parents could play. And that budget figure you gave is just symptomatic of a larger problem of who's invisible in this whole process of solving the child's problem. Something as simple as the controversial issue of you should breastfeed or not. Have a national discussion on that rather than a neighborhood by neighborhood debate. We can't make any progress on it. It's going to help the child. What can we do? And I think your numbers are probably comparable around the country because people don't see parents as having significant roles. Having said that, Jeffrey Canada is different, but Jeffrey Canada raises millions of dollars every year. And so we can replicate his program, but not at his cost. That's the unfortunate problem, because it is parent and child centered, not just child centered. But it's a great program, but if you try to replicate it in Roxbury, it may not have the same impact, and that's part of the way we confront it. Is the environment right? Is the culture right to do what Jeffrey's done in Harlem and make that a marketable program, a cost-effective program that will save parents and children around the country.
And I think,
can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Go ahead.
This follows up on this. So I mentioned Moynihan, so I'm not trying to sort of rub in things. What I really want to try to understand is, are we now at a stage in American political life and social life where we can start getting past the rhetoric, just understanding that family plays a fundamental role seen this, Alan Kruger was talking recently about the Gatsby curve, the Great Gatsby curve. I mean, we are, I don't know if you've seen the correlations, but if you look at the relationship between family income and child income across generations, in Denmark, it's 0.15 correlation. It's there, it's a positive effect. In the US, it's closer to 0.6. So we're like 4 times the size. Family influence is playing a role in the US society, and it's perpetuating inequality across generations, and some of that's parenting. And so I think if we really say, look, all these kids, we have these objective measurements, right? It's not a race thing. I think the problem with the Moynihan issue is it looked like a black-white issue. And it looked like something that many African-American politicians and nobody wanted to go there. And I'm saying I think the language he used is wrong, but I think there was logic. So I don't know what you would say. I know what Bill Wilson says.
Well, and Bill and I have interesting, he's a sociologist, so he studied the same way that Moynihan did. It's interesting you wrote, that you said that I wrote about Moynihan critically in the book I wrote about Brown when I was a student at Stanford, because most of the African-American, Latino students there were from single-parent families. And so it was as if the report was the worst of, and not a combination of, there is a way to succeed. We weren't, in a sense, advocating for single parents, but most of us had a mother and an absent father, and still lived and did very well. And so our reaction as 18-year-olds was, how can he condemn this without even looking at what change is being made? His book was in 63, right?
55.
It was 65 or 63? I thought it was 63. Johnson was in 65. Johnson's Howard University speech. Remember that?
Yeah.
Johnson, what's interesting is comparing the two. Lyndon Johnson talked about black versus white. So it was different, right? About, blacks have changed from run the 100-yard dash, and we have to change all this poverty, education, crime. Very interesting. And Moynihan talked about black within the black community, about both mothers who are not prepared and fathers who are absent. And that's all we read. We just read this sort of, that sounds like a profile of black families, but we have survived even with these restrictions in the 20th century.
But let me add a footnote to that, which recent scholarship looks at.
I agree with Moynihan. It's different looking at that.
But you look within, for example, the Robert Taylor homes in Chicago, when they were there. The sociologists, the anthropologists studied. There were many, many successful children.
That's exactly
and what was the difference? It turned out that the conscientiousness, this kind of non-cognitive of the mother, how well the home was managed, even in the face of street gangs, in the face of deep. So the measure of disadvantage is not income.
Right.
And it's not single parent. It's just parenting. I mean, that's the hardest thing to measure. We have all these proxies, but for public policy purposes, we got to go beyond the proxies for precisely the reason you're saying. It's really the parent, the single mother. She may be less educated. All she gives is kind of a sense of encouragement to the child and a sense of order. Creating a decent, clean, or at least an environment that gives order to the child's life. That's worth a fortune. So I would argue, I sometimes argue, well, there's another example where surely money doesn't work. Paris Hilton. She's a great example. So the correlation between final outcomes and family income is really pretty, is low. We have to move beyond it. For public policy purposes, this is a subtle issue. I just had a conference 2 weeks ago in Chicago. We're talking about going around the world trying to measure the true conditions of advantage and disadvantage. And I think you're exactly right. I think Moynihan didn't get anywhere near it. I'm just saying he triggered a discussion which then led to deeper thinking, which said it wasn't just single parents. It's really single parents who are not encouraging their children, and that is the big divide.
Well, with that robust response to our first question, we've exhausted our time. Let me just try and wrap up here in a moment, because I think the response is indicative of some work that we have to do, both in terms of our theory and in terms of our practice. I know that those of us who have responsibility for schools have come to the conclusion in watching our work on achievement gaps that schools alone cannot do it. So we need other partners. Families are the obvious initial partners. We need our partners in early childhood. We need our partners in communities, private sector and elsewhere in order to be able to do this work more effectively. We need to broaden our conception of what our responsibility is, not just as educators, but as adults in a society for rearing children more generally. So this whole business we were just talking about, having to do with family engagement. Family engagement is not getting people to show up at PTO meetings or school assemblies of one kind or another. It's this kind of support work that you were just describing, and this kind of reading to the children that goes on, creating environments that form the foundation for continuous learning, irrespective of the parents' education. So I think doing this conceptual work that we've been talking about a little bit today, broadening our conception of what schooling and education is about to child development, and then developing the kinds of indicators that enable us to make powerful public policy arguments so that we can get support for the work that needs to be done to bring along this next generation of young people, will then show up in closing achievement gaps or opportunity gaps or proficiency gaps or however we choose to name them. So I think we've made a good start on a conversation here today. I hope it starts your conference in the right direction to give you some things to think about going forward. Please join me in thanking our panelists.